What's going on, everybody? It's Steve Peterson with Infinity Investments, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the 3 lessons that multifamily investors learn too late. Too late. Now, it's never too late, and it's always better to be late than never. But there's these 3 things that I think are really important, especially today while we're in a pandemic environment. That these are the lessons that you don't want to learn too late. You want to, soak these lessons up early. But these are the 3 lessons. The first one is that it's usually more difficult to evict or get rid of problem tenants than you anticipated. Now, I'm in Oakland, California, in the Bay Area. All right, right now there is an eviction moratorium. You can't even evict nobody from your property if they're not paying rent. If they got the other tenants in the building in the headlock, it's a tough time out there. But outside of the pandemic, right? Let's just take a step back. A lot of investors, when I'm working with them as a broker, we're crunching through numbers, and I always run my numbers pretty conservative. And a lot of times, the business investors will say, I'll put at least $1,500 to $2,000 a year for attorney fees, because that's like the minimum if you have to evict like one person in the Bay Area, right? And it's probably more than that, to be honest with you. That's like the minimum. But investors, when I put that in there, a lot of times people, we don't have to worry about that. We're not gonna do that. I can get them out less than that. Now, if you're a landlord and you've been around the block, you know what I'm talking about. So a lot of this is what I'm directing that to the new ambitious landlords getting into the business, or people wanting to get into the business, because evicting a tenant is very, very difficult, and you have to follow the laws, okay? You don't want to try to do this on your own, and you want to make sure you have an attorney that knows what they're doing going through an eviction if you have to get rid of somebody. And a lot of people have come in not knowing the laws, not knowing what they're doing, and it becomes a nightmare. And I hear all this, I own properties in Oakland, the Bay Area. It's a nightmare. The issue is that you didn't take the time or have the plan or have the budget to properly deal with it. The successful landlords, there's always going to be, whatever business you're in, there's going to be a pain point at some point. All right? But the successful landlords out there have a plan, they have a budget, they got people they work with. And so that's not stopping them from doing business. Now, a lot of y'all might be out of state or somewhere else in the world. I know, like in the state of Texas or in the state of Ohio, where I've done business, it's a lot easier, faster, more cost effective to get rid of tenants. However, you still got to have it in the budget. You still need to have the right attorney. And you need to be, cognizant and aware that this is going to happen. And it's not the end of the world. That's why you just have to have a plan for it. But a lot of investors learn this lesson too late when they're thinking, it's going to take a couple $100, and it's like $3,000 to $4,000. You know what I mean? That's very difficult. And I've had a situation where there was a Section 8 tenant at one of our buildings. I love Section 8, by the way. So I want to make sure I put that out there. A lot of people, Section 8's got a bad rap over the years. Today, by the way, a lot of landlords and lenders love Section 8 tenants. But I had a guy, he attempted to set our building on fire. He had some mental health issues, right? And, I called Section 8, we made a police report, we were trying to get rid of him. And they were just like, look, it's going to be this long, arduous process to get rid of this guy. And I reached out to him. We had a conversation, and I said, look, I gotta, what you did was wrong. What you did was wrong. I have the safety of my tenants at this building is the number one priority. I've got to get rid of you. But look, why don't you find another apartment, and we part ways without us having to go through this legal arduous battle. That way you can keep your Section 8, you can move to the next one. We were able to work out a situation like that. We were able to work out. He moved, he was happy, found another place, actually ended up getting some help, mental health wise, and be able to keep his Section 8. I was able to get, negotiate and not have to spend about $3,000 in 3 to 6 months trying to get this guy out. Now that's a success story. And I've got 100 war stories for every one success story. So just understand that's part of the business. All right. You want to budget that in, and you want to make sure that whatever you're doing, you have a backup plan to be able to deal with, getting rid of tenants that's not playing by the rules, that's not handling their business, that's not doing it. And I'm not talking about buying tenants out. That's a whole different conversation that I'm not getting into. I'm talking about when somebody not paying their rent, or like with my issue, I'm telling you, it wasn't about the payment of rent. It was about the safety of my other tenants on the building. And yes, we had other Section 8 tenants on the building, and that was the only problem I had with any of the Section 8s on the property. But we were able to work that out, all right? But we did have a budget. We did have a plan if that wasn't going to work out. And that's what you need to do. So number one lesson investors learn too late is it's a lot more expensive and time consuming to get rid of tenants. That's why if you're screening or moving someone in, make sure you go through a fair but very thorough screening process to make sure you got someone that can afford to pay there. So you got someone that's got a decent background and they're going to take care of the property. Number one. Okay, number two, not budgeting for capital improvements. Okay, the property is a physical, tangible property, all right, that on a regular basis is going to need what's called capital improvements. Now, capital improvements is a label we put on improvements to the property that are not your regular operating expenses. Okay, your regular operating expenses are going to be your management, your maintenance costs, your PG&E bill, your water bill. Maybe you can expense out like a unit turn if you do some work on it. But then if you're coming in, if you're installing water heaters, you're installing new heaters on the wall. Okay, you're installing a new roof. Okay, you're painting the exterior of the property. You're making a capital improvement that's treated different from a tax standpoint. But what it really is an investment into the building, to the physicality of the property, right? And these are physical properties. And yes, the numbers are the main things that drive the values of apartment buildings and commercial real estate and multifamily properties. But the physical functionality, the physical aesthetics also have to do with the value, because that all has to do with the rent you can get, with the retaining great tenants. And by the way, where this comes to bite people, I'm the broker, right? So where this comes to bite people is when it's time to sell the building. And a lack of capital improvements into the property is going to equal deferred maintenance. That when you go to sell that property, the buyer is going to find, because they're going to see it with their eyes or they're going to identify it in the inspection process. So you're going to pay for it one way or another. A great way to handle it is to have a capital improvement budget and to make sure when you are, operating a property that every year you're putting some money into a reserve account. Okay, we had a fourplex and we sold, and what we did for the first couple of years is we didn't take on any owner disbursements. We didn't disperse out cash flow to the owners. There was 3 of us in the deal. What it was is that the funds were able to stack up, and we wanted to make sure we had a reserve of 10 grand at all times before we start taking disbursements and start taking cash flow. That way we had money on hand to deal with any emergency capital improvements, and we had money on hand to make capital improvements as we went. And then when we knew at one point in time we would sell, that we would have money in hand and put capital into the property. Sure enough, we decided to sell. When we decided to sell, there were some issues that we wanted to address. Well, it wasn't a panic time because it was a reserve that was already there that we can look at and deploy. My most successful clients always, and I have a client, he owns over 1,000 units. He makes capital. Whenever he's building, he's looking for the ways to improve the value of the property. And that helps him to get better rents, to retain better tenants who really value the aesthetics and the functionality of the property. But if you don't spend that money, if you're a slumlord or you're a cheapskate on the areas that matter, on the health and safety issues, on the aesthetic issues, on the functionality issues, it's going to cost you in the long run, right? Either when you sell it or at emergencies. And it's always more expensive dealing with an emergency than doing something preventative. Reactionary measures are always more expensive than preventative measures. So the second lesson that landlords learn too late in the multifamily business is not budgeting for capital improvements into the property. Third and final lesson that people learn too late, okay? is managing properties is not for everybody. It ain't for everybody, y'all. Some people are pretty good at it, by the way. And one thing I learned myself is I'm not a good property manager, man. That's not my strong suit, right? I'm better at sales. I'm better at acquisitions, things of that nature. So property management isn't the best. You know what I mean? It's just something I've learned. You know what I mean? Now, if you're learning that on a duplex or the fourplex, that's a great place to learn that. You're starting out, and sometimes you starting out. It's good to get a little bit of experience managing properties, dealing with tenants, and all of that. However, I would say if you don't have like the hunger for it, some people it gets them going. They enjoy it. They enjoy dealing with tenants, leasing tenants and dealing with the issues, and they're good at it. You know what I mean? And if you're in a 2 to 4 unit space, a single family house, you can kind of, deal with that. If you're buying a 50 unit building, trying to manage it on your own, and you're in second year and you're realizing that this ain't for me, you probably devalued your property in some way or shape or form. You know what I mean? And earnestly say there are professional property managers out there that can handle the tenants, the toilets, the trash, and the issues, all the stuff that pops up with operating property. A lot of times I also hear people, a lot of times stock market investors and other investors, I don't want to buy this property, I don't want to be a landlord, I don't want to have to fix no toilets and all this and that, right? A landlord, let's say with 1,000 units, ain't out there fixing toilets because he got 1,000 units, he or she's got 1,000 units, they're running a business, they're not fixing toilets, right? They got a staff that's fixing the toilets, or they've got a company that they hire that's, has vendors, handling that, right? And so it ain't for everybody. Now, some people are, and I have clients that are great owner operators, right? But the ones I see that are really good at it have the time and have the experience and expertise in dealing with it. And with the bigger buildings, anything 16 units above in the state of California, you have to hire an on-site manager anyway to be on site. And those guys, I'm talking about, they'll have on-site staff, management, maintenance, and they run them. They run the operations via them. So they still have a team in place, and which I suggest, especially if you're starting off, to get someone to help you run the building, hire a professional property manager. And even if you don't, you say, I'm gonna take this on, you gotta budget that cost into the analysis when you're running your numbers. And then if you're managing your own property, put a line item in there and pay yourself for managing your property. It expenses out. It's an expense on your P&L or your taxable income, and you should be paying yourself or somebody to manage the building. Now, one little bonus here, a little bit of a bonus, is that if you do hire a property manager, understand they are good. They are hard to find a good one. It's a good property manager is hard to find, all right? But there are some great ones out there. You know what I mean? You want to look for people who've got like a CPM, Certified Property Manager designation. There's people that have gone through like the RIMBY course. You want to find somebody who's going through a RIMBY course, somebody who's educated themselves and is passionate about this. They're not just going through the motions. And you got to manage the manager, okay? And you got to lead and manage the manager. You got to set forth your expectations, what you want, what you're expecting. You got to stay on top of them. Don't put this on autopilot. Even if, we want passive income. We want to, leverage ourselves and have our assets produce cash flow. That's the reason that you're purchasing them. But you want to make sure you're on top of it, like the CEO of the building. All right. So that's my little bonus for y'all. I hope these three lessons learned too late help you guys out, especially if you're starting out. And this video kind of really more for people getting to start out. A lot of you grizzled veterans out there, you could probably, and give me grizzled veterans, give me some comments here, man. Give me some comments on what your experience is with any of these 3 points. The first one being, getting rid of tenants. The first lesson, getting rid of tenants is more expensive than you thought. Second lesson is not budgeting for capital improvements into the building. And third one is managing is not for everyone. Give me some comments if you've been in the battle trenches on your experience or some keys to success. I think we as a marketplace in this pandemic, man, we need as many best practices out there. And I'm speaking as a broker and an investor, but as a broker, I don't want to just slam my clients into properties. I want them, when they close on that property, to have that property help them achieve the goal. When they bought that property or they're going in the acquisition, the goal was to build wealth with this property, generate cash flow, build long-term capital gains, pay the equity and build up through paying down your mortgage. I want that asset to accomplish the goal for that client. So hopefully this content helps out as you're looking to make that acquisition. If you like this type of content, subscribe to the station, throw me a like. If you don't like it, dislike it and tell me why, but engage, man. Let's make this marketplace a better, more efficient marketplace by bringing valuable content. And I hope that we're able to do that. Peace out, y'all. Have a great day and week and life year, and stay safe in this pandemic.